Let's talk NASCAR. So we are ready to go for a playoff race number 2. And Darlington delivered, definitely. And I have had all sorts of issues with Darlington over the years. Especially at, they bring in the old time guys. And for those segments, I'm like falling asleep. I know you guys like them, but they're retired for a reason. So, and the races were just boring to me. It's just nothing going on. There were big leads. I just didn't like it. But once again, and this is going to be an interesting conversation to kick this off because, look, we've been touting this next-gen car all season long as fans. Love it, love it, love it. Kevin Harvick doesn't love it. And
nope.
I'm not sure Kyle Busch loves it. And there's a lot of talk this week after Kevin Harvick's car goes on fire about the parts and the next-gen car and all this stuff that we can get into. But look, same thing with how they hate Talladega and hate, Daytona, and they hate we, as fans, love it. So do not do anything to change this next-gen car. I don't care what the drivers are saying. And maybe you can say, okay, this is what they should get. But yes, as long as it doesn't screw around with the racing, I'm all in for protecting the guys and all that other stuff. But I do not want to see them doing anything to change this car.
No, they've got to find a way. And I get what they're saying with the fires. And yes, that needs to be addressed. And I feel like somehow softening up, I feel like it's too stiff on impact. So somehow finding a way to make the impact not as severe for the driver in the cockpit, but without compromising the racing, I'm all for it. And it sounds like NASCAR is kind of getting a grasp on it. Scott Miller was on NASCAR radio yesterday, and he addressed it, and he mentioned that he doesn't agree with Harvick's comments of that NASCAR doesn't care. Like, we do care. We do want to get – this is unacceptable. He's like, I agree with him. This is cool for a car to spontaneously combust for no reason. We're looking into why. And I get it. And like you mentioned, Darlington, it's an aged surface. You've got a lot of rubber. And rubber can get in. And he said, and he made note, and I didn't think about this till he did, look at the cars that are catching fire that we've seen recently. Yes, it's a problem, but look at them. Chris Buescher, Ford driver. Joey Logano, Ford driver. Chase Briscoe, Ford driver. Kevin Harvick, Ford driver. He thinks it might be something in their exhaust.
Okay.
That maybe rubber or something's getting sucked in and it's getting trapped between the firewall and the body. And heat, the thing's already hot and heat, and just over time, what do you think it's going to do? It's going to smoke and catch fire. Yep. That's what you're seeing. So that needs addressed. They're trying to fix it. I believe them. They're not just going to let them keep going out there. And the other thing is the hits these guys are taking. Somehow get it to where I've seen some of these onboards that have leaked, and it's violent. And having a way these cars are too stiff, they keep saying. But other than that, everything else is fantastic. I mean, you have Eric Jones winning a playoff race. I mean, they kept saying that the second time around, which William Byron was right, it's going to help some of these teams. And my thought was like, oh, it might make these big teams better.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't.
No.
And I think it goes to show that it is still a survival of the fittest. Because Eric Jones did not have the best car. I think one could say the Gibbs guys did. Well, Truex took himself out, not by his fault, didn't finish. Kyle Busch took himself out. His car didn't finish. Eric Jones, like they mentioned, like Richard Petty was mentioned in his press conference, or his whatever called press conference, Zoom call, whatever he was on, that they probably had a fifth best car.
Yeah.
Granted, that's better than they've had in years.
Sure.
And that's the reason you race. If you go into a race each week and say that favorite's going to win, why watch?
Yeah.
Everybody else just took themselves out, and there he was. So, again, first race of the playoffs, it's never happened before that a non-playoff driver has won. And not only was it a non-playoff driver, it wasn't like it was Truex who should have won or somebody like that. It was Eric Jones.
Yes.
It was a petty GMS car. That is 27 races into existence, and they won. So I feel like that is this next gen. This next gen has definitely changed the game. So I paused for making my picks this week. Like, I still went with playoff drivers.
I
but
saw that. Yes.
It's true. Are we really going to see, it's never happened before, 2 straight weeks? It's the next gen. It could. I'm going to side with the playoff guys, but it may make me change my thought process for Bristol. But you never know.
Well,
I think that's fair.
We talked about the next gen car, and I'm going to get like a small example, and I didn't even put any money on it because it's just I think at least Eric Jones has shown some consistency enough where I even picked him last week, so I felt okay. There's a reasonable chance, but Ricky Stenhouse, here's an example. He's 250 to 1. He had one top 10 in 19 career races at Kansas. When was that? This year.
Right.
Okay, so I looked at his Xfinity career record at Kansas. Well, the last time he raced there, he won the Xfinity Series. So what that's telling me is this next gen car is balancing the playing field and giving drivers an opportunity to win races. If you're a good enough driver, doesn't matter who the team is, doesn't how much money you're throwing into the car or the crew chiefs or the team, but your driver, not saying they're going to win every week and Eric Jones is start winning, but every once in a while, a Ricky Stenhouse and Eric Jones may be able to win a race where before they had no chance.
Yep, that's exactly where it's at, and it's. I hope it stays this way for the future.
Absolutely, it better.
I would like to see, and we talked about this over the years. I don't know how you do it. I get it's controversial in F1. I would almost like to see it in NASCAR with like the salary cap to where you can only spend so much. Maybe you spend on the driver, because I think that would help. Because let's be honest, pretty soon these big teams are going to get sick of seeing Petty won another one, Trackhouse won this one, 2311's coming along. They're going to like, we have these resources for a reason. Let's outspend them. And that's what's happened to the old cars, was they've had them long enough and these teams outspent the other teams on development. Well, this is year one of a new car, so I get it. It's where you get more parity because nobody knows what to expect. I hope year 3, 4, 5, 6 down the road, it's not, well, Hendrick's figured it out. They've spent millions upon millions in this development, and often Penske's done. Because I think this is what's drawn people more to NASCAR. Absolutely. Is there is this parity, and you don't know who's going to win any given race, and that's a good thing.
Yes, and we've talked about the whole salary cap thing to death, and we'll talk more about it in the off season. We'll bring it up again, and we'll definitely have more. Maybe we'll even do a salary cap show, but absolutely, that's something that is I think long overdue. Okay, so just wrapping up Darlington. So yes, Jones got the win. Good for CJ, by the way, because he had 4 drivers that led most of the laps. So he kind of deserved that one, even though Jones was the one that really didn't lead a whole lot. I think he led the last 23 laps, and that was pretty much it. Once again,
that's about it.
We've talked about this a lot towards the last end of this season. It doesn't matter how you qualify. It doesn't matter how you practice. It doesn't matter first stage or second stage. It's the final stage and how you can possibly end up there. You just keep improving on the car. Maybe you don't get the bad luck like we saw on Sunday night, and you're there and you put yourself with a chance to win. And that's what happened to Jones, and it just happened again. I mean, another driver that only leads the last X amount of laps wins the race.
It seems how that's been going, and it's, if you can, I need to pay closer attention because I just don't think of it in the race. And it's hard to find, is I want to go back and look at, like, at stage 2, the eventual race winner, what were his odds in the middle of the race on live betting? Because you're probably going to get, like, I bet you Eric Jones probably
was, I'm trying to think where it was. I was live betting. I'm trying to think around what time. I'm pretty sure it was around between the second and third stage. He was 12 to 1.
See, you could get better odds because, granted, during the race, it'd be hard to give the guys that are up front dominating, not putting them 3 to 1, 5 to 1, like low odds. I mean, they're dominating.
Kyle was 2 to 1.
Yeah,
at the same
probably
time,
about where he should have been.
Yeah,
but then you look at the guys that end up winning, they're really not even in the top 5 of these stages. It's just like they come out of nowhere.
Yeah,
and they only lead. It seems like you said, from the point they take the lead over in the final stage to the checker. That's the only time they've led all race. It's happened I used to have the stat. I'll need to look, but I'm venturing to say probably more than 50% of the time, the only laps they've led were the end.
Yeah.
So it's where if you NASCAR live betting, I'm shocked it hasn't fully taken off yet for these stats, because it wouldn't hurt to have just $50 sitting there and just throwing like 3 or 4 or 5 drivers longer shots.
I've seen it in golf. Have you seen it on NASCAR coverage? I haven't. Because they'll show, here's the odds.
I really haven't seen a lot of people do it yet.
Yeah. So I haven't seen NASCAR. Golf's doing it. Hey, there's now the updated odds. But I haven't seen NASCAR do it yet. So
I haven't. I wish they would on the broadcast. Yeah, because I think that would be a thing to do. I mean, it would keep people engaged. Yeah, it'd be easy. Like, hey, let's look at like FanDuel's Stage 2 break live odds.
Absolutely.
I mean, they do with it in Fox, like the Clint Boyer was the 6 questions and how many drivers will be leading in Stage 2, and they have that. Like, why can't you do it equated to betting? Absolutely. I think you'd get a bigger audience.
Yes, but that's too easy. By the way, where was Richard Petty?
He left midway through the race. It was getting late for him.
Come on. I mean, that's the only thing I was like, actually, hey, Joe, I'm going to see Richard Petty. That's going to be cool. Where'd he go?
He's older than people think.
Yeah, I guess.
And he
probably should have slept earlier then, took a nap.
Probably. Yeah. And the other thing, too, is I don't think a lot of people realize that Petty GMS, it's just a Petty name. It's GMS running the show. So I could see where he kind of exited like – it would have been. Him and Victory Lane, the cowboy hat.
Because it doesn't happen.
What they say was like, no, it was like, 40-some years to the date that last time that car won. So
that was bad. Should have had that. Okay, so, by the way, we all have now 9 wins each in our fantasy team. How about that? That's
weird
parity for you. Even on
the fantasy team.
Even in fantasy. We were separated. I tied CJ this week, and CJ won. And you were only 20 points back. Remember, everything now moves up. The points get doubled, or at least it was doubled last week. So that shows you how quick. Even though I have a 330, 40-point lead in there, that could change in 1 week. So.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with all this parity going on. You never know what the hell is going to happen from week to week.
Finishes all over the place. Like at one point, CJ had like 3 in the top 5, and then he had 3 outside of 30th, but his guy won.
Yes.
And he had a couple other guys, and you had like 3 or 4 in the top 10. So yeah, that win. It's just it shows how quick that this thing could flip on its head. So we'll see.
Yeah, I was thinking about. I mean, I'm gonna give Briscoe another race, see how he does. I'm actually thinking of changing up with Briscoe. He's only going to have another couple of races potentially anyway when he's no longer a playoff driver.
Yeah.
But I give him 1 more week because he won an Xfinity Series race, I believe, at Kansas.
Yeah, I think it might have been second the day later or something. Yeah, he's pretty good at Kansas in Xfinity.
Yeah, he led 159 of the 200 laps in 2020 in the Xfinity Series at Kansas. So I figured, all right, I'll get, and he was running 10th early in the race in May when he spun out. And that was the beginning of a bad day. Okay, so no changes this week. Check out our fantasy standings at racereviewonline.net. But again, the big winner really was CJ because he got the win, that Eric Jones win that I don't think he was expecting. All right, now, let's talk about viewer comments. So we had a viewer comment, Randy Fisher. So what's the incentive for all the drivers not in the playoffs? Is it still to get paid depending on how you finish and to still show your worth, secure contracts and stuff like that? And Randy, he's asking these questions because as he continued, this is my first time seeing the playoffs, so trying to soak it all in. Thanks for y'all's insight each week. Makes me see each race differently in a good way, hearing you all break the races down. So thank you, Randy. Appreciate it.
Yep.
This is why we do it. I'll let you answer Randy's question, Eric.
Yeah, good question. NASCAR playoffs are awkward in a way that it'd be like the NFL or MLB or something. Like you have your playoff teams, and then all of a sudden you have I'll just use teams last year to make it. Let's just say the Jets and the Dolphins are just going to play a game on your field while the Bucks and the Rams are playing. It's like what's going on here? Why these two teams aren't even in the playoffs? But and they could affect the outcome of this game. But yes, the NASCAR it is makes it awkward. Even my son, he was asking me like, why Trix it makes playoffs? Why is he in this race? Well, yes, it's because the sponsors they come on for 36 races. You don't know at the beginning of the year whether it can be a playoff driver or not. So money, that's a big thing. You don't want to just park the cars and just have a 16 car race. It makes more sense that way. It'd probably do a quicker race, but it's for money. And then there's incentives. Let's be honest, that you want to now be the best of the rest. I think there used to be $1 million bonus to the top non-playoff driver in the standings, which this case would be 17th. I'm not sure if they still do it. I'll need to follow up on that. But there's pride for that. And some guys like Truex, I'm just going to go out and beat everybody. Some of these guys like, you know what? I'm not a playoff driver, but I'm going to go out there and I'm going to prove that I should have been a playoff driver. Or some guys cave and like, I'm done with this. I'm focusing towards next year. But that sponsor, again, you always go back to the sponsor. They want their car up there. So there's incentives. Sometimes guys get extra incentives depending on their contract. The top 20 points finish. So
yeah, that would make sense. Yeah,
some of these smaller teams might have an incentive to finish the top 25. Maybe they know they're not going to get a top 20. Maybe like a Stenhouse. Hey, look, a top 20 would be a great season for us. We'll give you $500,000 if you get in the top 20. We'll give you $250,000 if you get it in the top 25. Or sometimes for every position, it's scaled. So they have that. And then other teams that they know, like a front row, like a McDowell or Todd Gilliland, like, look, a playoffs would be great for us, but sometimes it's a bonus to be the best teammate. Maybe you're the best teammate in the points. Maybe you finish as 22nd, the other one's 28th. Well, he gets a bonus. So it's all comes back to money.
Did they used to have, like in golf, did they used to have where you win, this is how much money you make?
It used to be.
How long ago?
They don't release the purses. They used to release all that probably within the last decade. And then once the charters started taking over, they just stopped putting purses and how much you win. Because a lot of times you get money per position. That's still a thing. They just don't release it anymore.
Okay, so you can still make money for winning a race.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
There you go. So
and
Eric
plus
Jones.
There's incentive. Yeah. So that for him, he took a good payday for that. I mean, it's still granted. Are they getting as much money than a charter team in the playoffs? No, but it's still money. Yeah. It still keeps the car moving. Absolutely. So yes, it's weird. It's awkward, but they're still around.
Well, look, it's not gonna. It doesn't look good when you have 8. Oh, now we have 12 left. Eight cars. It just doesn't look good. I mean, I even know that.
And you'll notice too, Randy, as these rounds go along, you're going to start seeing the playoff guys up front. You're going to start seeing.
Unfortunately,
even with
since Randy's since he's never been around for the last race, it's just the 4 guys. Even though there's 34 drivers out there, forget the other 30 because they're not getting in the way.
They won't even discuss them on the TV broadcast. You're going to just see, and usually more times than not, it's going to be the 4, even if it's a short track, and they're going to be 5 to 10 seconds ahead of 5th place. It's going to be like they're their own little race. I get it for a new fan. It could be very confusing. Like, what's going on? Like, this guy, because what we want to see is like, hey, it's action for the media and for fans is like, I want to see that guy, non-playoff driver, maybe lose it and mess up the playoff guys because it makes it interesting.
Yes.
Usually it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But
we got to change that somehow. We talked about that. Ways to change it. Yeah.
More incentive for these non-playoff. To me, I'd like to see a bigger bonus for somebody like Eric Jones. Hey, a non-playoff guy went like a bounty. Hey, I'm going to give you a $5 million bonus. You're a non-playoff guy, but you won this race. Maybe give it an incentive. But they'll be every step of the way through the playoffs. They'll still be in the race.
Okay. Any other silly season talk we should be bringing up? Still no Kyle. That's the only thing everybody wants to talk about, right? So still nothing for Kyle.
Yeah, nothing for Kyle. He keeps saying the next month. It sounds to me like Gibbs is probably gone. I don't think that's going to happen. Okay. Now it sounds more RCR, Colleague, 23-11. Probably the 3 favorites for him.
Okay. So just quickly before we move on from the whole, because we were going more next gen stuff before, what is the next step as far as we're just going to wait for them to determine what the deal is as far as or I mean, you do agree with the whole thing about with NASCAR, they're in control of the parts.
Yeah.
So it is their responsibility. Do you believe that they are going the cheap route of, well, we're gonna save money here with inexpensive parts that are blowing up on the race course? I mean, I don't know about that, but what do you think about that?
I do think there is some of that just to save these teams money. Hey, look, we're supplying you the parts, and we know because the teams are equally somehow at fault because they keep saying, and at fault I use this in terms they go to NASCAR, save us from ourselves. We're spending too much money. Save us from ourselves. That's why you see the lack of practice in qualifying. And we don't need it. Save us from ourselves. We'll burn all the tires and fuel up, and it saves us our costs. It saves us hotel rooms. It saves us overhead. Save us from ourselves. Don't let us test. Save us from ourselves. So NASCAR hears this and like, well, these parts seem to be good. Well, they're cheaper. We'll save you from yourselves. Don't touch them. Don't manipulate them. Don't use these parts. Okay, well, now it's kind of come back to these parts maybe some of them don't work.
Yeah.
Because in the past, it would be these teams would fix them. Hey, this isn't working. I got an idea here. But they're so fearful, as they should be, to manipulate a stock part that's given to you.
Yes.
They don't want to touch it. And they should be fearful of that.
Yes.
That's why the parity you're seeing is like, look, we have ideas here that could fix this, but we don't want to touch it. Because if we touch it, I'm not, especially in playoffs, I'm not going to lose 100 points. So they're not touching it. So it's a catch-22. I do think NASCAR is going to address it. I believe them.
Sure.
The other thing to come from this with the officiating is, remember Daytona with the rain, and everybody's like, why did you not throw a caution earlier? We knew it was coming. Well, they threw a caution in Darlington, and it was sprinkling. Scott Miller said, we learned from Daytona. We did acknowledge that we should throw a caution out sooner. That's why you saw the early caution at Darlington. When he mentioned we probably would have raced in the past during it's a sprinkle. We usually keep going. That's the reason we threw the caution. So I think that was kind of an under the radar thing that he said yesterday. Everybody spoke on the fires. I'm like, hey, look, he just mentioned they made a change because of the weather. So they're bobbing and weaving. I applaud them for that. They're admitting mistakes. They're trying to fix it. So I do think eventually there's enough smart people, engineers, that they'll get this fire thing under control. Now the car and the wrecks, that I wonder. That I wonder what you can do to that.
Yeah, stay away. We love the car the way that it is, so don't screw around with it. Okay, so as we segue into Kansas, let's also bring up parts or bring up the design, because wasn't that the big story in May in Kansas? Were the tire issues, and it was just so ridiculous because even I'm watching the replay and reminding me of the predictions of, watch out, and sure enough, another car goes down with a tire issue. So how has that been fixed? Do we know if it's been fixed?
A lot of it, Goodyear will go and look like, all right, because a lot of the tire issues, again, are team related. Goodyear just gives you here's the pressure you should run these. This is what our recommendations are. A lot of times when they do it comes to find out the teams are running a different pressure than they were recommended. Because let's be honest, a lot of teams know Kansas, places like that, it's a track that's newly paved. Not newly, like it's within the last few years. There's not a lot of tire wear. So they know it's probably going to produce a longer green flag run. So what you do is you run a lower tire pressure, knowing that as the tires on the track is going to build heat, and as the more heat it builds, the more it inflates, and it will come. So they set the cars up based off that. Well, if the tire's not inflated enough and it's not gaining air like it should, you're going to have cut tires. Or the other way, you might inflate it too much. That's a lot of times you see the tire failures because of that. It's usually team related. It's not necessarily Goodyear related. It's the teams have done. Now Goodyear will do their due diligence. And if they see something, they'll, let's update this. So yes, I think between the teams, 400 miles of data, and Goodyear, we should not have these issues. Yeah, they usually they'll rectify itself in that.
All right.
process.
Now, Kansas, 10 of the last 13 winners started in the top 10. 12 of the last 13 in the top 13. The only one that was out of that position was Denny Hamlin in 2019 from the 23rd position. Ford has won only one of the last 6. Chevy has only won one of the last 7. Toyota then has won 7 of the last 13 and 4 of the last 6. And now we've seen Vegas is the most similar to Kansas.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So we saw Vegas. Now that we've seen Kansas, we pretty much just worry about Kansas because Kurt Busch finished 13th at Vegas and won Kansas.
Yep.
So is that pretty much what we do now? Is that even though we have a little bit of information on Vegas, maybe we'll save that for Vegas when we go back to Vegas. Then we got 2 Kansases and a Vegas, and maybe three races is a lot better than 2, especially when we've already been to Kansas.
Exactly. You might notice, like if you look at Vegas too, the way I look at this, that's why I went Toyota heady. You notice my picks. Toyota was really good at Kansas, and if you remember right, they were really good at Vegas before that last caution. Remember, Truex and Kyle were 1-2.
Yes.
And that caution fell. Alex Bowman and Greg Ives, his crew chief, outsmarted them, pitch strategy, over time. He just held them off and won the race. But Toyota, prior to that, was the better manufacturer. But like you said, it's hard to base a lot off Vegas because that was the 3rd race of the season.
Yeah, that's true too.
This whole thing was all new.
Yep.
But I think you could take a little bit from there. Take Kansas in May. You could probably even throw a little bit of Charlotte in there, another mile and a half. Granted, they don't shape the same. Throw it all into one pot, and then it'll look like, okay, because you see some trends through each, and Toyota seems to be a common denominator in each. Like, oh, they're pretty good at all.
Okay.
One guy I worry about, Chase Elliott, wasn't really good at either. So you could kind of look at those and kind of go off your picks that way, which is what I did. Now, granted, I say that, and we're going to live Sunday. It's going to look absolutely nothing like I've just said, but it could. So
you gotta, it is what it is. That's the you don't get parity without. Parity means that it's really hard to handicap. So you just sometimes luck's involved.
Parity is basically unpredictable.
Yep.
It is, and we'll see.
By the way,
go ahead.
Taking a look at the first, and now that I'm saving odds, there's 2 big significant drops. Christopher Bell was 20-1 in May. Now he's 10-1. Bubba Wallace was 150-1 in May. Now he's 20-1. So big drop for Bubba. We both have Bubba. We're the only 2, by the way, who have Bubba. We both have Bubba. I was a little bit. I didn't like the 20-1 though. Like 20-1, but I just felt we've got a little extra money now. So why not put a little bit there for Bubba? Who did we all pick? There were just 3 drivers.
Larson?
Yes.
Hamlin?
No.
Oh, he was the favorite. I should have known.
I'm staying away from all the favorites lately.
Bell?
Yes.
And then one more. Reddick?
Yes. There you go. And we didn't have a whole lot of drivers. Matter of fact, we only had, CJ didn't go. CJ only went with 1 driver outside 12-1, and that was Byron at 20. You and I only went to 35-1 as our longest shots. You going with Suarez, and both of us going with Bowman. So this is not trend wise. There's just not a lot of long shots that make sense in this race.
No.
So
especially a playoff race. I feel like this track, Darlington's a little more driver track, like we saw. Let's just say that the tires or Elliott or Larson's engine sputtering and that kind of thing, and you can get Darlington over somewhere like Kansas. Or the Truex and Kyle Busch mechanical things don't happen, which he probably won't happen at Kansas. One of them is going to win Darlington. Kansas, you don't really see a lot of that weird stuff happening, where I feel like but some of those longer odds, I'm coming back around on Bowman. Byron, I almost came back around on. 35-1 on the guy that won Vegas.
Yes.
and he was ninth at Kansas, and he's not terrible at Kansas. I had to take him.
Absolutely.
Suarez, playoff driver.
Yeah.
He was 10th at Darlington in the spring, and granted, he was going towards the top 10 from the back this past weekend. Vegas, he was good at. Kansas, he was only 33rd, but he had an issue. So 35-1, I thought,
sure,
got to take him.
Yeah, he
he
was runner-up in 2019. He led 63 laps. So statistically speaking, 6 top 10s out of 14 is pretty good for Bowman. So
yeah, I thought for 35-1, it was Byron. I'm not ready. I'm not all. I feel better about him, but I wasn't ready to like. Is he really just going to jump out and win this race?
Yeah,
I think he's a solid fantasy play, but I don't think 20-1 to him was a little steep for me. Where 35-1 on Bowman was a bargain, I felt. So that's why I went Bowman side over Byron.
Yeah, the reason I went with Byron was because if you look at it, he was leading the race in May when the tire went down.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And he's seeing these tracks, like he said last week, a second time. He said that the reason they went way off was this is why I don't trust a lot of the simulators and the iRacing, all that stuff, is they don't 100% correlate to an actual race car and a racetrack. And he said all their sim work, it didn't translate over. He's like, we were showing up going the wrong direction. We were just taking the data from what the computer said.
Too much information.
Yep. And now he said, though, like he mentioned, in saying that, we still have data. We know what way not to go. We had the whole race to get the car back going. That now I'm going back to these tracks with data. I'm going to real data, not computer data. And when you look at Darlington, he won a stage. He ran well. All right. He's in Kansas before. So let's see what they can do. That's why I just felt like 20-1, is he actually going to win where I can get his teammate at 35-1? That's the only reason I went that direction.
Yeah.
So.
And look, you had to also invest money on your top 2 drivers where I didn't. So I was able to use money on Byron. And that's why what I'm hoping is, because I want to make money like anybody, is I'm hoping that once again, just if I can get just through another race where those top drivers don't score, I can zero in on that middle group. And more than likely, one of those guys will win. And because of the odds will be nice, I'll make some money off of this.
Exactly.
Because when we're looking at Hamlin at 5-1 and Busch at 6-1, I mean, I get it. And they're both Toyotas. But let's keep in mind, Hamlin has not led a lap here the last 2 races. He's only led 7 laps in the last 3 races at Kansas. He was never really in contention for a win in May. Yes, he was 4th, but he wasn't going to win. 32nd at Vegas. Keep that in mind. And also, if you look at his laps, he's led 349 career laps in 28 races. He has led more than 34 laps just 3 times at Kansas. Twice in 2020 and once in 2019. He led a combined 268 laps. Basically, what that was telling you is for those 3 races, he was just dominant at Kansas for that time being. But every other race, every other time it comes to Kansas, he's just another driver. So at 5-1, I just couldn't do it.
The only reason I did, I was skeptical because of that. Because like he's feast or famine there. He's either really good or he's really bad. But if you look at this trend, which is really weird, and it seems like he wins on these trends. Look at the 7th race of the season. Do you have it up in front of you?
The 7th race of the season? All right.
Yeah. Do you have the schedule?
The 7th. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's Richmond.
Who
Denny
won?
Hamlin won. Yes.
Look at the 14th race.
Oh, would that be Charlotte?
Yes.
Okay. And then what's that? So are we
going
going
to
to
21st race,
28 or are we going to 21?
Look who won the 21st race.
I don't know. What is it? I don't see Denny Hamlin.
He did.
6, 7. Well, it said, what, the Pocono race?
Yeah, technically he crossed the finish line first.
Okay, so that was that Pocono thing. Okay.
And then this is the 28th race. He wins every 7 races. Okay. And I thought, okay,
I like that.
He seems to. And I picked him to win a race this round. I'm like, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe this is, Toyota's been so good there. that I'm going to go his way. I'm going to see if this trend works for 5-1.
Okay.
So I kind of went on trend for him, but we'll see. Now, if he wins the 35th race, I know, Martinsville, go his direction.
Oh, well, if he does win this week, you can be sure we'll be putting a ton of money on Hamlin and Martinsville. So,
and you'll get good odds for him because he sucked there back in the spring. So we'll get good odds for a Martinsville win for him. So
okay, I like it.
But we'll see.
Is that sort of like Joey Logano
I thought,
as one of the
every other year?
The 2022. One of the viewers pointed out Logano 22 and 22.
Yep.
22 and 22.
Number 22.
That works too.
And he's every other year championship 4. Yeah. So yeah.
And he's leading.
Definitely,
he's all of a sudden first.
He's hot. He got hot at the right moment. So
even though he still hasn't won since
this week.
So, but he's getting close.
He's there enough.
This week. I know you didn't.
I almost did. I almost did, but I went with Bowman instead. I was like, he's what, 20-1, but he's just not been good there. But again, it's the next gen; things can change. But I feel like this week, knowing that he hasn't been good there, I think, and knowing he's got the points lead, I think you just come out of there and just get a top 10. Don't swing for the fence. Don't do anything stupid. Just get stage points, get a top 10, and you're really good going to Bristol. And I feel like that's probably their game plan. Don't do anything like, hey, look, we know we don't have a race-winning car. We haven't really been great there. But if we could just get a top 10 and get some stage points, we can almost clinch by virtue of that going to Bristol because he's so far up. I feel like this would be he'd be a good fantasy play this weekend. But again, it's 20-1. That's still great odds for the guy leading the points
and let's keep in mind that he has 3 wins at Kansas, and they've all come in the last 18 races. So he has led 500 laps.
And you've got the points leader. For the points leader. In the playoffs.
See, again, I didn't put money on the top 2 guys, so I had money for Logano. So that's the difference. So
he wins in these moments. Remember in Gateway, he was longer odds. Bristol Dirt last year was like 33-1 that I hit him big on. Like he wins.
But he's a long shot
in these longer odds situations. So I wouldn't put it past him.
All right, Kyle. Look, I was the only one that took Kyle last week. And again, maybe I was wrong for doing it because the whole reason we've been staying away from Kyle is because they can't finish races. There's just something that goes wrong no matter how good they are, even though it looked like this time it was finally going to do it, and it didn't do it again. But that was what, 10-1? I can't take him at 6-1. I can't do it. I'm not going to be suckered into doing 6-1 with Kyle Busch. I'm just not going to do it.
It was hard. It was hard for me to 6-1, but I'm like, he's good. This is arguably one of his better tracks, is Kansas.
After it being his worst track.
He's just really turned it around. Like he's like a top 5 machine. He won in May of 2021. He was 3rd in this past spring. Toyota's really good there. We've talked about Denny Hamlin's either up or down. We know Kurt's not going to be in the race. I doubt Ty Gibbs is just going to come out and win this race. They're just trying to keep that car going.
Kyle needs to win this race.
Process of elimination, you get Kyle. And what I think for them, where they really want Kyle, is Toyota knows they've got a deficit on short tracks. They're not good on short tracks and road courses. They keep mentioning that. And that's where you're probably get good Hamlin odds for Martinsville because they know we're not good at short tracks. We need to win before we get to short tracks. Denny's good enough in points right now where he can get top 5 this weekend and feel good going to Bristol. I don't know if Kyle will feel good if he struggles this weekend.
Kyle's great at Bristol.
I think he knows
over his career, but
his only win this year is out in Bristol, oddly enough, but that was dirt.
Yeah.
So I just feel like he should have won last week. It wasn't the team's fault, just bad luck. Which again, I struggle to put 6-1 odds on somebody with bad luck. I mean, he's got bad luck. That's hard to. Do you really think the bad luck just turns around like that?
Look, it's just like you were saying. Logano's first in points, and I'm sitting there at 20-1. Kyle has had no luck at all this year. He only wins a dirt track race, and he's 11th in points. He's finished like in the 30s 3 of his last 6 races, or 4 of his last 8, and he's 6-1.
Yep.
I'm just
Logic states the other way around.
yes,
Yeah,
that's why I'm
it's
going that
hard
direction. Yes.
in a season of parity. Yeah, no, I don't. It's
Okay. Elliott 7-1. Now you also stayed away from Elliott, who was running seventh when his tire went down with 72 laps to go in May. He was second here last year. He does have a win here in 13 attempts. So why'd you stay away from Elliott?
I just feel like he's another guy with bad luck. And I just wonder, we talked about a month ago, did he peak too soon?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at his finishes lately, they've not been great. And he wasn't great, like you said, he did have a tire problem, but he was 29th in the spring race. He was 33rd in the 600. He just was there at Vegas. He wasn't great. These tracks, these mile-and-a-half tracks, have not been, I've got the stats here, the intermediates for Chase haven't been good like they have been for Kyle Larson. So I just stayed away for 7-1. This, like you said, this hasn't been a great track for Chevy. And if any Chevy driver is going to win, I focus more on Larson over him.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at his intermediates, his last 5 finishes 29th, 33rd, first, but that was Nashville. Not much you could transfer from Nashville to here. 11th and 36th. So not great for these type of tracks. So I stayed away.
Yeah, we all took Larson, as we mentioned. He's a defending champ. If you take a look at it, he has led 452 of his 444 career laps here in his last 7 races. That's 64 laps per on average. Second in May, he got passed by Kurt Busch with 8 laps to go. Led 29 laps. And again, defending champ, led 130 laps last year. So yeah, the only thing with Larson is that if you look at it, he's had 1 win since California, which is really something else, considering how good he was last year as the champ. But yeah, 8-1. That's also the reason. Now we're starting to get to odds that are a little bit better, and I'm able to take a guy with this much credentials here at this track just recently. So yeah, why not take Larson?
Yeah, I mean, you look to Kansas translated from the next gen and the old car to him, or the old car to the next gen for him. I mean, he led the most laps in the spring race last year. He won the fall race. He finished second in this spring race. I'm like, he's been good. You look at Vegas, he finished second. He won Fontana, which is an intermediate track. And you look at the intermediate tracks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 of them this year. He's finished in the top 4 of them. He's first, second, fourth. He was 7th recently. So I just feel like the numbers are better his way than they would be in Chase Elliott. So this is a good track for him. So
yes, absolutely.
I was shocked. I figured he should probably win up more 5 to 6 range, but
that's where Kyle Busch took his numbers.
Yep.
So
they kind of did, and you get better odds this way. So yeah, that's why I went.
I'd much rather take Larson than Kyle. So okay, Truex, by the way, is also 7-1. Okay, I get it, but
I don't know why. Yeah,
it's like, look, he has a couple. He has 800 laps led here in 28 races. He's got 10 top 10s in his last 11, 5 top 5s, a runner-up, and 2 wins. Get all that. He was running 6th on lap 164 in May when his tire went down. Still finished 6th, which again shows you that he's strong at this racetrack. But I mean, come on, this is like Kyle in a way, but yet now you got a driver that is not in the playoffs. Just no luck at all. Nothing's going right for this guy, and he's 7-1. Maybe if he's 12-1, I'm putting a little bit of money on it, but I'm at 7-1.
No, I had my mind. If he was double digits, I'd give him a look. Single digits, absolutely not. I mean, if you look at intermediates, like I just said for Chase and Larson, he's not finished better than 6th on these tracks this year. That's literally his best finish. So, like, for 7-1 for a guy that doesn't finish better than 6th, and he's a great top 10 play, but he's not a good winning play or outright winner. And a non-playoff, granted, if you're going to get a guy a second straight week of a non-playoff winner, he's the guy.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, too many good guys that I just don't see that much chaos happening a second straight week. I just see it. So I don't know why at 7-1 he'd be the one where you can go elsewhere. So
every sportsbook's different. So if you wind up getting him at 10 or 11 or 12, maybe he doesn't qualify. Maybe he qualifies 10th, something like that. Go for it. Put a couple of bucks on him. But 7-1. No, I'd just be
Nope.
like, you know what? If Truex and Kyle Busch can beat me this week at those odds, go ahead and beat me, and I'll take it. I'll take the loss. Okay, teammate Christopher Bell. Now this is different. Getting 10-1, and he finished fifth on the pole in May, leading 37 laps. He's got a win in the Xfinity Series out of 3 attempts as well. And if you take a look at Christopher Bell, this has definitely been this is his best time of season for Christopher Bell.
Yep.
He's dialed in nicely. He's got a bunch of top fives over his last 8 races, including the win at New Hampshire. Coming off in 5th place at Darlington. I love him this week, which is why he's one of my top picks overall, investment-wise. He's my top investment.
I feel like basically to the odds just for popularity and name, because Bell should be 7-1,
Yes.
but he's Bell, 10-1. But I agree. I mean, you look at his intermediate finishes and 10th, 6th, 5th, 5th, 8th, 26th. The only reason 26th was Michigan. Remember, he got in an incident with Chastain while running up front. And 5th. Those are his finishes. Like, he's really good. He's won an Xfinity race. In fact, his first Xfinity Series win was at Kansas.
Oh.
So this track's been good to him. Like you said, he was on the pole back in the spring.
Yeah.
So Toyota's been good there, and you get him for 10-1. It just was a no-brainer.
Yep.
So yeah, he's definitely a solid play this week.
And then at 12-1, the other of the drivers we all took, Reddick, and he has 2 top 10s and 6 attempts in the Cup Series. In the Xfinity Series, he has 3 top 5s with 2 runner-ups. Hasn't finished well here the last 2 races, but he did lead 24 laps in May. And I don't remember what the problem was, why he finished 30th. I don't recall.
Yeah, he had an issue, I think. Yeah, I
issue,
can't remember exactly. Yeah.
So
he might have been a tire too.
Possibly. So I'm willing to bypass that for a driver just like Bell, who is driving the best of his season. And he's got 2 wins, unlike Bell. And he's got the runner-ups at Daytona and Pocono. He's coming up a 3rd at Darlington. Excuse me. He's got the runner-up at, where is it? I'm looking at Bell. He's got the runner-up at Pocono and Daytona, and he's coming off, yeah, there it is, and a 3rd at Darlington.
3rd.
So why not
second
go
and
with
third
Reddick?
entering.
He's a no-brainer.
Yeah, second and third entering. He was good. He's usually good at Kansas. He said just finishes don't necessarily indicate, but for 12-1, he's up front. And like we saw Eric Jones happen last week, just got to be up front and let something happen.
Yes.
So for 12-1, yeah, he was another no-brainer to go his direction.
Okay, and nobody took Chastain, and I think I'm assuming that's because this has not been his time of season. He definitely peaked too early, so he's got to get his mojo back at some point soon, or else he's going to start seeing maybe he'll last another round, maybe, but that's it. He doesn't have a top 15 in his last 7 races. That's pretty bad. The only good thing to keep an eye on is over his last 6 starts, he's only had 7 Cup starts at Kansas. He's improved each race from 39th to 7th, which happened in May.
And these haven't been his great intermediate tracks this year, have not been kind to him finishing-wise. And you look at 3 of his last 4, 15th or worse, which predicates with his finishes not being well, too. So I just feel like he just needs a solid top 10 day. And you got Bristol coming up. A lot of people want to pay him back. So he might be best to just get you in the top 10. And his short tracks and super speedways are where his strengths are. And mile and a half have not been good for him this year. So for those odds, I thought he was a little overvalued further.
And that streak, that's a bad streak. He's got to just get some good, a good race, good top 10. All right, Blaney and Logano. Now, I threw money on both Blaney and Logano. With Blaney, and I think we even saw that last week, what's happening is that we're seeing a much better team than we saw at the beginning of the season. So he's no longer getting screwed on pit road constantly or any of that stuff. And overall, what did he finish last week? I know he finished 13th, but he was racing in the top 10. I think I think he got caught on pit road, maybe, which is the reason he went back a little bit.
Yeah, he had a little rough stop, I think, but
but anyway,
still 13th. He survived. I mean, that's
racetrack he's not good at.
Yeah, the 13th is respectable for Darlington for him, and Kansas, I feel like just another not great. Started off really good for him.
Yeah,
he had a bunch of top
10.
7.
He was top 10 all day.
But lately has not been.
He
Yeah,
was
so he
top 10
just
at
needs to.
Kansas in May all day.
Yeah,
Finished
so
12th.
if he could just get, he's a great top 10 play. I'm not sure he's
Yes, I
top 10
would say
odds, but
that. Yes. I only put
um,
money on him just basically because I'm getting 15 to 1. And if Eric Jones can win, I've got that extra money that you don't have. So I sprinkled
yep,
it among these drivers that I felt, okay, maybe.
which is a smart play. I mean, yeah, you never know. I mean, we've seen so much parity. I mean, why not get an 18th winner? And Blaney's not won this year, so
And he's
it'd
had
be
a decent success in the Xfinity Series, so it's not like, and he's had 3 top 5s here. He's led 172 laps, so it's better than Darlington. So,
yep.
and
I'm rooting for Blaney in a year, as odd as this sounds, that takes a win to move on to everything. Like, I mean, we had all those different winners. He'd be the one guy. I hope somebody not a championship 4 wins Phoenix, and he finishes second, and he wins a championship without winning a race all year. I think it would be absolutely fitting and hilarious. But I digress. I think that'd be funny.
that would be. All right. And Logano we talked about. So
Yeah,
and he's at 20 to 1. By the way, Harvick at 15 to 1. And you and I
shocked
took
me there
Harvick.
too. Yeah, I'm shocked he was 15 to 1. I mean, he went top 2 there for what, 4 straight races or something crazy like
13 top 10s in his last 18. 11 of those top 5s. 5 of those runner-ups, and 2 of those are wins. He spun out lap 131 in May, and then again late in the race. So we had a couple of issues, probably tire issues. Who knows? He just couldn't. Maybe the handling, whatever the case may be. Third last year. Fact is that yeah. I mean, 15 to 1, and you know he wants to win. He has to. He's almost in that spot again where he really
that. Yep.
needs to win. So,
And he won Michigan, which is a speed track. This could be a speed track. And you got to look, too, like he kept saying, let me see these tracks a second time with this car. He's already seen this track. So, and you're getting 15 to 1 odds for this guy. I don't know what he needs to do to get. It used to be it was. I remember every week a couple of years ago, Harvick was 3 to 1 or 4 to 1. He just never. Now it's like they will not put him better than 15 to 1, which I'm all for.
Yes.
You want to keep giving me 15 and 20 and 25 to 1 odds for him? I'll take him all day because this is a race he could win. I would not be shocked.
He had the back-to-back wins. Then he's going to Watkins Glen and Daytona, so who cares? And then Darlington, he might have actually been in contention for a win if his car doesn't get on fire. So
yeah, he was the top 5, I believe, at that time. So yeah, you can't take much from Daytona and Watkins Glen as far as it's. I just feel like before that was running well. Darlington was running well. Again, like Eric Jones proved last week, just be in the top 5 and see what happens. I feel like he can be in the top 5, and if something happens to Toyota, which it could, he's the guy that could be sitting there to. He's that guy that's going to look up. He led 15 laps, and they were all in the end and wins the race.
Yeah,
that's
probably.
It'd be the MO, and you could get him for 15 to 1 right now.
And then we talked about Byron also at 20 to 1. The other 20 to 1, Wallace, his only top 10 this year, finished 10th.
Yep.
And didn't like the 20 to 1, but I had the extra money. And last week he finished 9th when I don't think anybody expected him to be in the top 10 all day, which is what he was. So that just shows you, and now he sees Jones winning. I mean, that has to light a fire that, hey, maybe I should win too. So,
well, you look at Michigan again, it's half mile bigger, but he finished 2nd. He was good in Michigan. He's good in these speed tracks. Toyota's good. He's getting the 45. Granted, it's still the 23, but let's just say he's in the 45.
Toyota,
well, that car won.
Yeah.
That car won in May. So I think it'd be an interesting trend that the same car number wins the race with 2 different drivers in the same season.
Okay,
it could happen.
Does Gibbs have the car?
Gibbs is technically the 45. He's in Busch's car, but just the car number.
But the numbers, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
that could be something.
And remember, in May, the pit stops are the only reason Bubba was in the top 5 all day. It was the pit stops. Then he'd rebound, and then another pit stop would take him back down. So 20 to 1 for that, I thought was a bargain. I'm shocked. You look at what he's done lately, and you look at what you're giving him, and he's in the car that he could win the race, and you got Truex 7 to 1, and he's 20 to 1. I just thought it was completely baffling.
In his last 8 races, he's finished 7 of them in the top 13, and 5 of them in the top 10.
I was gonna say he's got a couple top 5s in there too.
And 2 top 5s and a runner-up.
Yeah. good odds for 20-1. It's
Glad I picked him up on my fantasy team when I did. So,
yep.
All right. 35-1. Gibbs. Okay, so now Gibbs. He's driving Kurt Busch's car, basically, who won the race in May. And, by the way, he raced one Xfinity Series race in Kansas, and he won. So how about that mojo? Winning.
And he won the ARCA race last year there.
Oh, did he?
2 for 2. Yeah.
Wow.
2 for 2.
So, I mean, I just felt that that's just going a little overboard. But if this was a regular season race, I'd put money on him.
I would too. And I think it says everything you need to know is that it's probably time to move him up to a cup ride. That this guy has never raced a cup race prior to Pocono. It's 35-1. You got to look at the guys he's got better odds than. It's not like he's racing a Gibbs car or a Stuart Haas car. He's in 23-11. This is the second season of this team. And you look at him, I mean, Bubba's 20-1. They've got him at 35-1. He's not far off. And this dude's only making, his 7th, 8th start? And it's like, I think he's ready. Vegas is saying he's ready. I mean, he wasn't even supposed to be in this car, and he's 35-1. So, which is why I didn't take him. There's no way that he's just going to jump 35-1 for that. Like, not yet.
Yeah, out of the 7 races, he's finished in the top 17 5 times, and he's got the one top 10, which was the 10th at Michigan.
Yeah, and he's got a car he's got a car capable to win. But I also know. He's not out here to ruffle feathers. He's ruffled enough feathers.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
He's not going to be up there bumping and banging for a win because he's going to have to do it with a playoff driver. And there's a good shot. It could be a Suedo teammate. It could be Kyle Busch. It could be Denny Hamlin. He's not going to want to take them out. So he could be a good, depending on his odds, for a top 10 play. But for 35-1, I thought was a little steep for that situation.
Now, you took Suarez also at 35-1. He was running 4th, lap 62 in May when he got loose and wrecked, and again, tire down probably.
Yep.
And he does have one top 10, but it was actually the very first race he ever raced at Kansas. But bottom line is, we don't care about all that. We care about the fact that he was running in the top 5 when he basically wrecked.
Yeah, and he doesn't have great stats to necessarily back. Like I said, he led a lot of laps when he was Stuart Haas that year, but I just thought 35-1 for a playoff driver. I had a little bit extra money. If I put that money on Logano or Blaney, I don't think I even would have broke even. Or I could have gone like, you know what, 35-1 playoff guy. Eric Jones won last week.
Yeah, sure.
Not saying that. I don't feel great that he's going to win.
Long shots.
Yeah. So that's why I went his direction. It's like, do I throw more money to a favorite's way? Well, it's not going to gain me much when I got 35-1. So that was kind of my mindset with going his direction.
All right, and then as far as, again, so none of the other drivers we took that were 50-1 or higher, if you had to take a driver 50-1 or higher, who would you have considered? You got Briscoe and Cindric, Dillon, and Jones, all at 50-1. I mentioned Briscoe's stats at Kansas, so that's interesting. Cindric has two runner-ups in 5 Xfinity Series races, leading 283 laps. So that's impressive. 11th, by the way, this year. So that was getting me interested. Dillon has 5 top 10s career-wise. Last 4 races at Kansas, 13th, 10th, 10th, 11th. Jones has 3 top 5s. He's not winning back-to-back.
No.
And then you have Almirola and Stenhouse at 250-1, Keselowski at 100-1. And I was thinking about putting a couple of bucks on Stenhouse based on that thing I said, but I was like, maybe if I got a few extra bucks in my sportsbook account when the race starts, I'll do it, but I can't do it right now.
I'd probably go Dillon just because of the playoff factor, and he could be around the top 10. Do I think he's going to win this race on pace? No. He's Reddick's teammate. They'll have something similar. You never know. Somebody could be speeding late. 2 guys get into each other. Mechanical failure. There he is. So I think out of that odds, definitely Dillon. Stenhouse would probably be my second just because he's decent on mile and a half.
And I have to, like I said, I got to decide if Briscoe doesn't do well here, who to potentially go with at Bristol. If I diss on Briscoe, so we'll see. It is Bristol, thank goodness that we're talking Bristol next week.
Yeah, already.
And we don't even know yet if we're going. So,
yeah, I need to figure that out. It's not looking likely, but we'll see.
Yeah. And if not, then we'll see. We'll see what another race that hopefully you'll be attending. And by the way, our futures are also available at racereviewonline.net, so check them out. We're able to invest now up to $300 per driver. So we have gone a little bit nuts as usual with the opportunity to rack up some additional money. Before I let you go, give me your 3 picks, your top 3.
For this weekend?
Yes.
Probably. It's a good question.
I would go pretty. You know what? I'd probably go with the 3 that we all agreed on. Larson, Bell,
That's what I was gonna. I would say Hamlin just because the trend.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Larson, and my 3rd place. Yeah, I'm gonna go Reddick. I feel like no. You know what? I'm gonna go. I got to go another Toyota. I'm going to go the upset. I'm going to go Bubba. I'm going to say maybe that Toyota. I'll go an upset there. Okay. I'll throw a sleeper in. Those will be my 3. 2 Toyotas and a Chevy.
Okay, there you go. And check out our picks, the futures, the fantasy standings, all of that. RaceReviewOnline.net. And if you're an IndyCar fan, you can check out the show that we just did. Well, we did a condensed little report for the final race of the season, which is on Sunday. So check that out as well. And you got the comments section, of course. Let us know. Randy did, so we responded. So if you have any interesting thoughts, any questions, let us know, and we will definitely bring it up next week when we preview Bristol. I can't wait. One of the best races of the year. Unfortunately, we only get one of them. So we're savoring it, and I hope the weather's nice.
Enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, is it a night race?
Yeah, it's a night
Saturday
race.
Night
as long
race.
as the weather cooperates. Yep, as long as the weather cooperates. Ugh. Sometimes it doesn't this time, so we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Well, at least I'll know. I live an hour from Bristol.
So you'll know whether.
Yeah, I'll know what's going on. All right, Eric. Great job as always. I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. See you then.